founder market fit, what investors look for. Let me set this up. We have a founder, may have experience with the problem, goes out and creates an MVP, gets out there and says, I don't know how to talk to my customers. I don't know where to find them. I have no idea, no clue about my market. And investors, they look at that and they go, this is a flag. Like if you can't just pick up the phone and at least start talking or know how to get into your market, that is a lack of founder market fit. And we hit this all the time. And so what founders do, Will, is they end up spending money and they say, I'm going to hire someone or I'm going to put all this in ad spend. So explain for everyone first, what is founder market fit from an investor's perspective, their perspective?
You mean in the case that they understand their customer and they can go find more of them?
Exactly.
Yeah, right. This goes to the opposite. This is Wozniak showing up and saying, I know how to make computers real good, right? But I have no idea how to sell them, okay? And that's where you look at the other side of the equation and you say, hey, this Jobs guy seems to know what he's doing. It's the exact flip of the problem, where that would be Wozniak having the intuition where he says, you know, I'm not really the person that's going to kick down a door to get our computer sold, but I can build a hell of a computer, right? I need to find the person who can. It was Bill Gates finding Steve Ballmer, right, which was his Jobs at the time. Wildly underrepresented as far as like what an amazing difference that guy made to the business. He was the other Steve Jobs that no one liked or talked about. But I think that if it's not you, and there's a good chance it's not, your job it will always be to find out who it is, right? This is just the first test of that. And to be honest, the first person you find probably won't be that good, right? Like you are going to start with the worst resources you will ever have. You will have no money, you will have no traction, you will have very little credibility because the idea doesn't exist yet. So the people you're trying to recruit on day one will be the worst version of what you can recruit, okay? So if you can do a half decent job then, imagine what you could do with some resources.
Some investors want founders to have done a certain amount of their own founder-led sales.
Yeah.
Very specifically, just like we talked about going experience a problem, experiencing what it's like to sell to the customer. Yep. How much do you think that plays a part into this? Like how much should founders, even if you're going to find your Steve Jobs, your Ballmer,
right?
How much should you do founder-led sales yourself?
Here's where that's interesting. Like sales comes natural to me. So for me, like the first thing I do is I go and sell something, right? Now that said, you know, plenty of founders where it is just not what they do. They would rather die than have to stand in front of people and sell anything. And I respect that. However, sometimes that's also a bit of an excuse, Ed, for them to say, well, I'm not going to get in front of anybody or talk to anybody, anything. I'm just going to hide back here and hope orders slide under the door, right? That doesn't work either. As an example, whenever we launch anything, right? I answer customer emails. I get on chat. I want to be as close to the customer as possible. It doesn't matter that I'm the CEO, right? And this has been across every business I've ever done. I am terrified of being pulled away from the front lines of a customer because in my mind, that's where everything happens. And if I have to rely on other people to translate to me what's happening, I'm terrified of that, Ed.
Yeah, and you remind me of this all the time, which I appreciate. Like, in fact, you and I had a conversation, and I was about to make a decision, and you said, hey, it's really important that we stay connected to the customer. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course. Because I'm just make it all go away, right? So I appreciate that. Now, let me give a shout out. I see someone in our audience. So I met this founder today, Will, and I'm excited for you to meet him. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I mention him a lot to you in our conversation. Here's an example of founder market fit or a willingness to go get it. He's trying to solve the problem of customer acquisition. So he said, you know what I started to do? I've been having personal conversations. I give people my cell number. I give them my Calendly link. And I say, do not hesitate. We're not going to do this by email. I will have a conversation with any of you out there right there. He put himself on the front lines. And I said that to me, I got excited about this founder, Will, because so many are not willing to go do that.
And I get the hesitation. What I'm trying to convey, and I know you are too, is what a danger it is to disconnect yourself from the very person you're trying to serve, right? It is wildly dangerous. Or said differently, what a massive advantage it is to be locked in one for one with your customer. Ed, someone that used to work for us not too long ago, left the company, took another job doing some sales, then came back to us recently and said, hey, I want to start a company, which is music to our ears, right? And that's kind of like what we're here for.
Yeah. You go up, oh, that's so nice. Welcome back.
Yeah, exactly. Best possible outcome. But my point is, he comes back and he said, man, now that I am the customer, because he was doing sales for us, now that I am the customer, I am a founder starting something, every single thing that we do here makes so much sense as to why people need it. He's like, I understand the sales so much better now than I ever did when I was actually a salesperson. And that's the point. That's exactly the point. You want to be able to understand your product as a customer, not as a vendor.
And Zappos was very famous for this and you want to work for Zappos, it doesn't matter if you're like the janitor or an IT, they put you in the bullpen for customer service because that's their whole ethos, right? So I think if a founder's willing to do that, then they're going to put a better culture in their company to grow.
Yep, I agree.
You know, Will, one of the things that I think is important about founder market fit is understanding the competition. So if you go out to your customers and you're talking to them and say, what have you done to try and solve this problem when you know we're not available? And you talk to the customers, talk to your customers, and they say, I've used this and used that, and you get to ask questions about that. Then you can talk to investors in a meaningful way and not say, oh, we don't have any competition. I've seen pitch decks this week with that, Will, say, we have no competition. I'm like, this is not going to go well, right? Investors need to know that you know how to evaluate competition. You can speak thoughtfully about them. You don't throw them under the bus. You can say, oh, we really appreciate Zoom and what Zoom has done for our industry. We're learning. So I'm going to say that part of founder market fit, what investors look for is that you know your competition. You can speak about it very thoughtfully.
Here's what I picture when I hear about people dog their own competition. Part of me, I get it. Like I respect the fact that they're a competitor, okay? However, let's say that your competitor was Salesforce and you're trying to build something that's going to take a piece of their market. And you're like, Salesforce totally sucks. I'm kind of like, that's the equivalent of a guy at the end of a triathlon telling me how much the guy that's about to cross the finish line in the triathlon sucks. I'm like, you're the one at the back of this race.
Sure. Yeah.
They're the one that's winning, right? Like it shows a lack of perspective. Okay. A better way to describe your competitor in this case would be our competitor is an 800-pound gorilla. Right? Our competitor has done insanely good things. However, while they're doing that, it's led to a blind spot for them. And the reason they're having a hard time seeing or responding to this blind spot is because right now it's monetarily not a big deal to them. So it's hard for the people internally to say, hey, we need to watch this $100 million opportunity that might arise when they're looking for $100 billion opportunities. Okay? $100 million opportunity is all the money in the world to us right now. So we're going to go after that chink in the armor that an incredible company like that can't attack yet. So I'm using both respect and a plausibility as to why this exists. That is a phenomenal phrasing for that.
Here's another version for all of you out there if you get caught in this conversation or it comes up. I'll have an investor say, well, what prevents Adobe or what prevents Microsoft from throwing $300 million and outfunding us in solving this problem? I go, really great question. If I analyze it, they won't because it doesn't fit their business model. It's an underserved market, or else they would have already. And therefore, I found an opportunity, and they've just proven out that this market is very lucrative. And here's how we're going to go in and service that gap. It's been underserved, underrepresented, and it's totally underestimated. And if I proven out the market, did the proper market analysis, it yields $1 billion opportunity for us. If we can prove it out, that's another way that you can couch and demonstrate founder market fit.
I mean, I hate that argument. Now, on the one hand, it's such a softball question for the founder because if the founder can't field that question, it's not even a matter if they're right. It's a matter of you should be able to hit this one back. Okay. So, but the premise, of course, is that whatever big co is in your market is really nimble. They have all these resources and they can quickly turn on a dime and attack whatever new market is out there. My answer is always, let's go back for the last 5 years for how many times this company has done that. So you can't just say XYZ company always turns and pivots and captures a new market because they haven't done it in 5 years. Why is that? Are they all sitting around going, oh, I guess we don't have any other markets to get into. No one's shown us anything. We're not thinking about our own business. Or is it because they see tons of stuff and they're like, that's too small to go after? Or more likely, we probably should go after that and we can't. We can't get out of our own way.
If we could, we would have done it already.
Correct.
A lot of times. Will, I'm so glad you brought this up because I was going to talk about this. But I think we also need to acknowledge, Will, that investors can be really foolish, like full of shit in terms of their own bias. For example, talked to a founder yesterday and he was saying, this one investor said, oh, what prevents the competition, Microsoft, from doing this? This founder literally lined up huge telecom companies with $100 million LOIs lined up, $10 million deposits.
Yep.
Set them up with the investor. So the investor can speak to his clients that said, we are ready to go. We're going to get this. We got 7 projects in mind. We've signed the $100 million LOI. And still the investor goes, I don't believe you, etc. And he asked the customer, well, what stops Microsoft from coming and you becoming a Microsoft customer? And the client says, if they were going to do it, they would have already done it. We would already ask them. We're in here. And it's just, we were dumbfounded as to how the investor was processing the market. And we were like, that's not an investor we want to work with.
Or how about this? How does Figma exist if Adobe exists? How does Canva exist if Adobe exists? That is literally what they do. That's not an offshoot or a one-off. That's actually what they specifically do. How do those multi-billion-dollar companies exist in a matter of years if Adobe exists? How does Netflix exist if Disney exists, right? Like, if you have to ask those dumb questions, you probably aren't a very good investor. But if you do ask those questions, what's to stop, Google from doing this, et cetera? You do need to have an answer.
Yes,
right?
That's up to you as founder.
And your answer can be nothing will stop them, but here's what will slow them down before we've already made it into the market.
Right. And that brings us to how much, and this is part of the intangibles, Will, how much do you push back in your experience? Do you push back and say, no, we have conviction on this. You don't know what you're talking about. Or, I've seen founders have one investor meeting and they come back and say, Ed, we need to completely change our entire business model or plan because the investor had an opinion. So what's that balance that will impress the investor and make sure you don't cancel yourself out of the deal, but at the same time, don't get like steamrolled?
Well, okay. So it's interesting you should say that because I've been on hundreds of investor pitches. Okay. And in those pitches, you have very different personalities. Like, there isn't one archetype that all investors are. Some of them are really nice. Some of them are not at all. Right. And sometimes they're sitting in the same room. Some investors want to prod the founder for the purpose of seeing if they'll take it. Okay. Let me give you an example. We were leading our investment in the company that I mentioned before, Afford It, a firm called Founders Fund, Peter Thiel's fund, right? And Dave McClure, long before he had ever started 500 startups, was like an associate there, kind of, right? And Dave brought us into the deal, but Dave wasn't a partner. And so Dave said, look, I'm going to introduce you to one of the partners, and he's kind of aggressive. Just keep that in mind. Now, he was saying that to say, he's going to push on you, right? He's going to ruffle your feathers. Ed, it was the weirdest meeting I've ever had in my life. Here's how far we got in the pitch deck. The title screen. It said affordit.com, some sort of tagline, and the partner, okay, goes apeshit on me, okay? He's like, oh, so you're loan sharks. You guys are loan sharks. That's what you do. You want to steal money from poor people. I mean, like that. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. And I'm like, what is happening right now? I knew I couldn't reason with him. I said, look, if you want to call us loan sharks, then let's talk about how to make the loan shark business phenomenal and ethical and something that you'd be proud to tell people about.
Wow. Right? That's nice. Good one.
So I took loan shark off the table, right? And he does the weirdest thing, right? And mind you, there's a whole room. My team's there, whatever. He looks at me, he's like, Will, do you like pizza? I'm not even kidding. This was his response, right? It's like something out of the show Silicon Valley. That show is so freakishly accurate, right?
Oh, yeah. I recommend it.
He's like, Will, do you like pizza? And it's like 10 in the morning. I'm like, yeah. He's like, let's go get pizza. I kid you not. We get up, leave the meeting, right? Leave everybody just sitting there. And he wants to go get pizza. And after like our little pizza situation, he was like, we're in. We love it. I'm like, what? And they let our investment. I'm like, what the hell just happened here? And what I'm saying is he just wanted to mess with me, right? He just wanted to see if I could defend my position, right? That does happen. It's happened to me multiple times, but I have to be clever about it. In other words, I can't go back in and just like fire at him, right? He has the cards. He has the investment. I don't. I have to make him feel comfortable that I can stand my ground without making him sound like an a-hole.